for generating screen elements via view. So create content method in a view, create content method. It is a standard method in a view for generating the screen elements via view. So it is a standard method. Don't forget that. So, but in create content method, what you need to do is you can declare one array where you can declare screen element array. You can declare one screen element array. After that, you create form object. Then you can create, for example, drop down object. Drop down object. And you can also create range slider object. And you can create a button object if required. And after creating all these screen elements, what you need to do is you have to use your screen element array dot, you have to use push method. Screen element array dot, you can use push method and you can push your form object here. Similarly, you can use screen element array dot push method and you can add drop down object here. Similarly, screen element array dot, you can use push method, that is range slider object. Screen element array dot, you can use push method of button object. So that's a technique you have to follow. And at last you need to return screen element array. That's it. Implement below technique in create content method of a view. So this is the technique you need to follow if you want to generate the screen elements by writing the code in a respective view. Say for example, I want to generate using a view concept. Then it's very simple. You have to create a table object here. You can create table object and you know how to create a table. The same code you can use it for creating a table object. But ultimately the table object must be added to the existing array by using push method. Screen element array dot push, it will add your table object here. So that is the technique you have to follow. For example, if you want to generate a graph using a view concept, then the coding wise for graph it will be same. Create graph object and do all those things, whatever I explained till today. Whatever I've explained till today, you can use the same code for a graph. And at last what you need to do is you have to use screen element array dot push method and push that graph object, so it will be added to array. And at last what you need to do is you have to return that screen element array. After that you need to return to screen element array. So, hello students, can you hear me properly? Hello students, can you hear me? What about other students? Can you hear me properly? Okay. Rahul, Neeraj, Naveen. Okay. So this is the approach you need to follow by writing the code inside, create content method. So here you can see I'm trying to create one project here. I'm just creating one project. For example, so now you can see an index file. You can see an index file. Now index file, I am not writing anything here. In index file, I am not going to write anything as of today. And I just want to use like SAP underscore UX. That is one of the theme. You can use any theme. Now we are not writing any code in index file at present. One second. Ashish, there is some problem. Okay. Adilakshmi. So in today's class, we are not going to write any code in index file. Whatever the code we used to write earlier in index file, I want to use that code by writing the code inside a view concept. So you can see there is a project folder, and project folder contains a view, and you know every view contains a controller. As you know, every view contains a view controller here. You can see this. Each view in UI5 contains one separate controller. So I am going to a view here. Under view, you can see there is a standard method that is create content. Don't think about other options. Just focus on the topic which I am concentrating. Don't think about other options. You can say create content is a standard method, and this create content method is to generate the screen elements by writing the code here. And you can see now, for example, I want to create a form. You know how to create a form. You know how to create a drop down, range slider, button, etc., etc. The same code, I'll bring it to create content method. The same code, I'll try to bring it to create content method in a view. So let me go back to our previous note files for copying the form related code and etc., etc. Let me check where exactly is the form. You can see here is a form related code. In the last class, we have discussed it. The form related code already we have done several times. And you can see now when you are using a form, compulsory SAP.UI.layout should be defined here. define SAP UI layout under library section, and that form can be used inside a view. You can take like that, a form can be used, and similarly, I want to use a drop-down coding also. For example, drop-down related code. So let me go to the documentation once. 1 second, Shiva Krishna. 1 second. So you can see here, there is a Eclipse. Let me open that Eclipse once. So this is what we have done here. You know how to create a form, but you should not place like this. You should not use O simple form dot place at. That is not required now. We should not use this technique now. Place at. So I should not use that. Just create a form object here with all the required fields. Similarly, I want to generate a drop down also by writing the code in create content method. By writing the code in create content method, Ashish Sharma, login from other browser, check audio. So I want to generate a drop-down box by writing the code in view under create content method. So why don't you use your documentation? In documentation also, you can see so let me go to a drop down. Let me just copy the code from here. So that's a drop down related code. That's a drop down related code. That's a code related to drop down. Similarly, you can use table also, but when I copy table coding, it becomes complex. So I just want to make it as simple to make you understand the actual technique. So I want to use a range slider. So let me use that. Let me go to documentation. I can also use a range slider. Let me check where it is available. Let me take one range slider from here. This is the code for range slider. So now not only that, I want to make use of one more screen element, that is a button. For example, I want to use a button. So you know how to create a button object. And for this button, I want to use text. Just I'm using some text here. as, for example, submit. So this is what you can do. Now we have a form object, we have a drop down object, and we are having a slider object, we are having a button object also. So in this example, we are trying to generate button, slider, drop down, form by writing the code in view under create content method. After doing that, you can declare one array that is a screen element array. Something like this. This is an empty array. This is the declaration for empty array. You can give that variable, array variable name can be anything, but I'm using SEARRAY. So I'm using screen element array. After that, you can use screen element array dot, you can use push method. Push method. So like that, you can use push method several times. And I'm pushing simple form object here. And I want to push a drop down object. Drop down box object. And I want to push a range slider object. I'm pushing range slider object, and I want to push a button object. So that is what you need to do. When you're writing the code in create content method, you try to declare one array like this, empty array. After that, you add all the screen elements to that array using push method. You can attach, you can add table also, you can add a graph, you can add whatever screen element you want, which we have discussed till today. So after that, what you can do is you can return that screen element array. That's it, very simple. You can return that screen element array. So that screen element array will supply all the screen elements to content of your HTML body. It will supply those screen elements to the content of our HTML body. So let me write a simple note. At array level, we can use push method to add screen element to array. And we can use pop method to remove a screen element from an array. You can just remember these things, very important methods. Push method, pop methods, they are commonly used methods on an array. At array level, we can use push method to add a screen element. We can use pop method to remove screen element. Now, so let us test it at this level. Let me check whether it works or not. The code is written in view, so please remember that. And in a view, the code is written in create content method. Please remember that. And in index file, we did not write anything here. It's a default code. So let me test it now. Now you can see all the screen elements are reflected here. You can see now the screen elements are reflected. So there is a form, there is a button, there is a slider, there is a drop down. So if you closely observe, whatever we used to do earlier, the same code we have written today, but slight change. The only change that you need to concentrate is you need to write the code in a view by writing code in create content method. And when you're writing the code in create content method, you try to declare one array and create all the screen elements according to your choice, and then push all those screen elements to that array. Push all the screen elements to that array, and at last you have to return that array. Okay, so you know how to create all the screen elements. You do whatever you want, but ultimately you have to push all those screen element objects to the array and return the array. That is a technique you need to follow if you want to write the code in view. So form coding doesn't change, drop down code doesn't change, range slider, the same code we use, button is same code, table or graph, we use same code, but additionally you have to declare one array and put all the screen elements to that array and return that array. That's it. And most importantly, the code should be written in create content method. So that's a technique we have followed, and now we got the screen elements. Now, say for example, think like this. Say for example, a user may provide something like some values here. User may provide some values here, and for example, I want to capture the values from this form. And user may select a value from here, drop down. User may select a value inside a range slider. User may select a value in range slider. So now when I click on submit button, I want to capture those values by controller purpose is to write the functionality, or it is to implement the function. The purpose of controller is to implement a function. You can write your coding there in the controller. So in this example, let us understand the requirement here. In the same requirement, now what I want to do is I want to use a controller also. I want to use controller, and in controller what I want to do is I want to create a function. I want to create a function, and I want to capture form values. I want to capture drop down value. For example, I want to capture range slider values. For example, I want to capture, that's it. So in this example, I want to capture form values, drop down value, and range slider value. But this functionality also earlier we used to write in the index file. Capturing the values from different screen elements we used to write in index file earlier. But today I want to write that same functionality inside the controller. So I mean to say implement functionality in controller. That is the main theme. And here that code is implemented in a view. So this is what we have done. Now this is what we need to do now. So I want to capture form values. I want to capture drop-down values. I want to capture range slider values by writing the code inside a controller function. After capturing the values, we can perform some CRUD operations. I'll explain CRUD operations in the next class, but at present, I want to capture those values and I want to print it as a message. But instead, you can capture the values as well by consuming OData service. So let us do this now. And let us understand one note here. For a button of a view, we can assign a function to event. Okay, let me make it more generic. For screen element of a view, we can assign a function to event of that screen element from controller using OController parameter. So this OController is a standard parameter which you need to remember when you want to write the functionalities inside controller. We can assign a function to the event of screen element. We can assign function to event. I mean to say, we can assign a function of a controller. Let us make it more clear. To event of screen element of a view. This line is important now. Let us not worry about that line. So now read this carefully. We can assign a function of a controller. We can assign function of a controller to event of screen element of a view. We can assign function of a controller to the event of the screen element related to a view. And that is possible by using OController standard reference. It is possible by using OController standard reference. So let me proceed now, then you'll get more clarity here. I'm going to a controller now. This is a view and this is a controller. Now in controller, what you can do is you can go to the bottom. Right now I'm in controller. At the controller level, you can go to the bottom section. At the bottom section in a controller, you can create one controller name. For example, display function, colon, function is a keyword. And within brackets, flower brackets, you can write the code. Display function is a function name and function is a keyword. Within this, you can write whatever code you want. Within this function, we can implement whatever code you want. But don't forget, now display function is created at controller level. So now what we can do is view now. You can go to a view. Under that view, you can see there is a button. There is a button, and for that button, you can use comma. And for a button, you know there is a press event. Press is the event of a button. And if you want to access the controller of a, if you want to access the function of a controller, then you have to use OController parameter. In order to attach the function of a controller in a view event, then you have to use OController dot, you can use that function name, that is display fun. That's it. This is important here. You can save it. Display fun of a controller is assigned to the button press event of a view. So don't forget that. And that is possible just by using OController dot function name. So let me write that note here. Syntax to assign. Some people are facing audio problems. Let me check. Okay. So syntax to assign function of a view, function of a controller to event of screen element of a view. Then what you need to do is you have to use event colon OController. You have to use event name colon OController dot that function name. That is a technique which you need to know, and now you can write that code in the function of a controller after doing this. Syntax to implement functionality in controller. How we do that? Just use your function name colon function, and here within flower brackets you write your functionality here. According to requirement. That's it. This is the most important technique. So in simple words I can say, according to this diagram, the screen elements are generated at view level. The screen elements are generated at view level, and the functionality is implemented at controller level. Screen elements are generated by using view level, and the functionality is written inside a controller level. So that is a main theme of that particular coding. And most importantly, what we are trying to do is for this button, we are attaching the function of your controller. For a button event, we are assigning the function of a controller, and that is done in today's class by using event name colon OController dot function name. So that's an important technique you need to notice. So OController plays vital role to access the function of a controller. And OController, it is a standard parameter. OController, it is a standard parameter. So Let me test it now. Let me test it. Now you can see, let me open an external browser. So here, now I'm not providing any input, but if I click on submit button, now some code is executed inside the controller. The code is executed inside the controller. I just put an alert message here. So now the requirement here is, say for example, I want to capture these input values from form, drop down values, and I want to capture range slider values. And I want to print as alert message by executing the code in controller. So if you want to do this, there is one important note that you need to notice. To access the screen element of a view inside a controller, to access the screen element of a view inside a controller, then you have to, then we refer using the ID of the screen element. This is the most important point for today's class. To access the screen element of a view inside a controller, to access the screen element of a view inside a controller, then we refer using the ID of that screen element. So that means ID property becomes very important whenever you're writing the code in a view and when you're accessing that in a controller. You are generating the screen element in a view, but I want to access that screen element in a controller, then ID of the screen element becomes very, very important here. So now you can see here under view for this form, under view, under a form, I want to provide the ID so that I can access this form from a controller. Form is generated in a view, but I want to access this entire form in a controller. Then you have to create this form by using its ID. So that's the reason why you can put double quotes, for example, my form or Oasis form. You can give some name, some ID here, Oasis form. Something like this. So Oasis form is the ID of this form screen element. Similarly, if you want to access drop down of a view inside the controller, then you need to provide the ID for this drop down, that is like, for example, Oasis drop down. Just for our understanding, we are writing that ID. Something like this. That is ID of this drop down now. So because of this, you can access the drop down in a controller by referring its ID. Similarly, say for example, I want to access range slider. I want to access the range slider of a view inside the controller, then you have to create a range slider with some ID property here. Something like this. So I just provided like Oasis slider. That is the ID of this screen element. So now by using this Oasis form as ID, by using Oasis dropdown as ID, by using Oasis slider as ID, we can access these screen elements from its controller. So that's the reason why ID becomes very important when you want to access these screen elements in a controller. Otherwise, I think in my experience, it is not possible. ID is compulsory if you want to access the screen elements in a controller. So I have provided IDs here for form, for drop down, for slider. I have provided IDs. Now I can go to controller. I can go to controller. Sunil is absent. Okay. So here I am going to controller now. In controller, what you need to do? First, we need to get the reference of view related screen elements. First, we need to get the reference. First, we need to get the reference of view related screen elements. This is what we need to do. So in order to do that, you have to use sap.ui.getCore. sap.ui.getCore.byId. By ID. And what is the ID of your form? So provide that. Oasis form is ID of the form. Provide that. So it will return form here. It will return form. So that means we are accessing the form of a view in a controller by passing its form ID. So it will return the form reference. Now, by using that form reference, you do whatever you want. You capture the data, you set the data, or you do whatever you want in this function now. Similarly, I want to get the reference of something like a drop down. Then you can use sap.ui.getCore. GetCore. sap.ui.getCore. Let me check here. .getCore. GetCore. .byId. And you need to pass the ID of the drop down, that is, for example, Oasis drop down. Let me check what is ID. Oasis drop down is ID, so you can use it here. And because of that line, you will get the reference of drop down. You will get the reference of drop down. And similarly, you can also get the reference of other screen elements like sap.ui.getCore.byId. .byId, and you can pass the ID of that slider, that is Oasis slider is the ID of the slider. Then it returns the reference of that slider. It returns the reference of that slider. Then what you can do is you can capture the values of the screen elements now. You can capture the values of the screen elements. That is, for example, I can use form.getContent. So it returns content array. It returns content array, and you can use like content of 1 dot get value. So in the last class, I have already explained this technique. So it returns, the first field is first name, so it returns first name. Something like this. Similarly, you can use other screen elements here. Something like that. You can use last name, email, country. Just I'm using some few fields here. And then now I want to capture the selected value from drop down. I want to capture the selected value from drop down. Then you can make use of a drop down object, drop down dot get value method. So it returns drop down value. And say, for example, I want to capture the selected values of a slider. I want to capture the selected values of a slider. So this is a range slider. So we can capture the lower selected value. We can capture higher selected value. We can capture lower selected value, higher selected value because it is a range slider. So why don't you use that now? Where a low value is nothing but equal to your slider dot get value is a method, and it captures lower selected value from range slider, and where high value equal to slider dot get value, and here it captures higher selected value from range slider. So this is what we are trying to do here. Now similarly, after capturing the values, for example, I'm able to capture first name, last name, email, country from the form. Then after capturing those values, I can execute OData ABAP service by consuming OData service with the help of model object. We can capture those values. After that, we can create a model object. We can consume OData service, and we can perform insert operation at database level, or update operation, or delete operation. So we are going to discuss CRUD operations in the next level. Don't worry about CRUD operations. I'll be explaining in the next level. But first, you need to be thorough with these things. Then, now at present, I just want to print it as a message. At present, I want to print it as a message, so you can pass it here. First name, you can pass plus some space, plus last name, you can pass it here, plus you can give some space, empty space, email, you can pass it here, plus some empty space, country also I'm using, some empty space, and drop down value. Just for experimentation purpose, I'm passing all the values. Plus you can use some empty space, then low value of a slider. It is like alert message is something similar to like your write statement if you compare with normal ABAP. This is just to check the values. Now, overall, in this code, what we are trying to do is we are getting the reference of the form of a view into controller. We are getting the reference of drop down of a view into controller. We are getting the reference of a slider from view into a controller by using SAP UI getCode.byId. SAP UI getCode.byId. That is very important here. You can see that. So let me experiment now. Let us test it. Now let me open it in external browser. Now here I am providing some values. Some country, India, and here also I'm selecting India in a drop down, and I'm selecting 180 here. I'm selecting 240 here. On submit, now you can see we're able to get those values. First name, last name, email ID, country from the form. This is a country from drop down. This is a, okay, there is some problem. Lower value is 180, higher value, there's a problem. Why? Because I think I am using the same variable here. Okay, here, you have to use value 2. Slider dot get value will capture lower value. Slider dot get value 2. 2 is a method here. Get value 2 is a method. It will capture higher value. So now there won't be any problem. You can test it. Something like country, England. And here also, just for our understanding, I'm selecting that 180 here. I'm making something like 240. On submit, you'll get those things. So 180, 240. So the point here is the screen elements are generated at view level, but the functionality is implemented in controller level. So that is the main theme of this particular basic scenario. View contains the screen elements, the controller contains the functionality. In our case, we have written the functionality to capture the values, and we are printing the values in alert message. But at later point of time in the next level, what we are going to do is user is providing the values. User is providing the values. We are capturing those values, and ultimately we are going to send those values back to something like SAP backend system by consuming OData ABAP service. You can send those values to SAP backend system by consuming OData ABAP service here. So that we are going to do in our CRUD operations. So that is how things will happen. User will give some values, you capture those values and send those values to backend system by consuming OData ABAP service. So let me write some important points here. Syntax to get the reference of view related screen element. Syntax to get the reference of view related screen element inside controller. So you have to use sap.ui.getCore.byId, and you have to pass the ID of that screen element. You have to pass the ID of screen element here. So that is the line which is very important. And I think we can also cut short this coding. You can see here we are writing like sap.ui get core, UI get core, UI get core every time. It's not, I think it's not really required. We can cut short this coding by writing this here. You can use sap.ui.get core. Get core is a method. After calling that method, it returns the view reference. It returns the view reference. Now here you can use a view dot by ID. So you can see here we have to use like view dot by ID. This will cut short some little bit code. SAP UI get core, it may return something like view reference, and by using view reference you can get the reference of screen elements by passing the ID. So let me check once. So let me test it in external browser. So you can see here, let me give something like Ajay Kumar. So here, if I click on submit button, then you can see we are able to do it again successfully, because that means that it's fully executed here. So sap.ui.getCore will return, it returns the view reference. After getting the view reference, you can get the reference of its screen elements by passing the ID. After getting view reference, you can get the reference of individual screen elements by passing its ID. So let me write that here. Reference of view. It's better I write this statement above this statement. Syntax to get the reference of view inside controller. Then directly you can use sap.ui.getCore. So that is what you need to use. Simple, and it's important. Now, say for example, I want to use some, okay, if you have any doubts, you can ask me now. Hello students. And don't ask me how to use multiple views. In tomorrow's class, we are going to discuss that, okay? That topic will come in the next level, how to use multiple views and how to navigate from one view to another view. We are going to discuss in the next class. So at present, if you have any doubt in that code, you can ask me.
Vijay, for SAP UI5 custom application, we'll be developing in view and controller, right? Not in index.
Exactly. That's the reason why I explained this concept.
Okay. And what is the purpose of index? Just for reference, like how we can create.
Index is like the starting page. It is a starting page.
Okay.
From that page, you can navigate to any view, or it can load the content of any view.
Okay. So if we are implementing any screen elements in the view, then from index it will straight away go to the view and show all the screen elements.
Exactly. The view will display the screen elements again under the content of your index file.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Okay. So what I mean to say is, here you can see it can be like this as well. Let me tell you. So here you can write like this as well. You can add one more content area. For example, content 2, and this is content 3. Now here you can place you can use 3 views now. For example, this is view 2. And view 2, for example, assume like this is view 2. And I want to place the content of view 2 in content 2. This is possible. And if there is one more view, for example, you can have like this. So if you closely observe this particular screenshot, we'll get some more clarity. Now assume that there are 3 views now. View 1 plus view 1 contains its controller. And view 2 and view 2 contains its controller. View 3 and view 3 contains its controller. Now if you closely observe, after writing this code here, view 1, view 2, view 3, then I can say this is possible. The content of view 1 can be placed in content 1 area. When you return the content, it will return the content to this one. And from view 2, if you return the content, then if you return the content array, it will send that screen elements to content 2. And similarly, say for example, from view 3, if you are returning the screen element array or content array, then it can return that view 3 related screen elements to content 3. That means technically in the output, you can display like this here. Technically speaking, in the output, you can display view 1 screen elements here, view 2 screen elements here, view 3 screen elements here. Okay, so now every view contains one create content method. So whichever screen elements you want to add in view 1, you write those screen elements in create content of the respective view. Every view contains its own create content method. So write the screen elements coding under create content method. For view 1, write the screen elements under create content of view 1. And it will return to content 1. Similarly, view 2 screen elements, you can write the code inside create content of view 2. And it will return those screen elements to content 2 area of HTML body. And create content that is of view 3, for example, then it will return those screen elements to content 3 of HTML body. So that is how internally it works. So that means in single HTML body also, in single HTML page, we can display the content coming from multiple views by placing in different content areas. We can display the screen elements coming from different views and we can place it in a single HTML page using content areas. So that is how things will work. Yeah, hello students. What about other students? Are able to
It is getting called from the index.html.
Internally, your framework will call this method. Create content method we don't call explicitly. It is triggered by
Okay.
the framework by utilizing the tow controller parameter.
Okay. Okay. But
And
these tags which we are writing here, we are writing inside the script, I guess, right?
these
In the
things you
index
can
dot.
yeah, these things you can generate any number.
No, no, this is fine. But in the first in the index.html, we were writing all this form creation, slider, drop down, and everything in the script, right? Inside the
Exactly.
script tab.
Everything.
But
The
here,
only,
but
the
here,
only, yeah, let me tell you, the only
yeah.
thing, only difference between previous examples and today's example is earlier we used to write everything in index file. Now the same code with slight changes, we made it separately in controller and a view.
Okay. So in the
Are you
view
getting my
also
point?
we are writing inside the script
In
tag or no.
in view, we don't write the code in script tag. We write the code in create content method or create content function.
Okay. Okay.
There is no chance of script inside that view 1 or view 2 view 3. There will be a only method, that is create content method.
Okay. In this case, if suppose I wanted to insert any HTML tag, then I need to use the SAP library, that HTML form, and
Exactly. Yes,
I can
yes, yes.
use that. Okay.
Exactly. You
Okay.
can use SAP UI core.html. In that you can include whatever HTML text and you can add it to the screen element array, then you can return.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Fine. Thanks, Vijay.
Yeah. Then what about others?
Hello, Vijay.
Yeah,
Hi
Harshal
Vijay, this is
Patel.
Abhijit here.
Suppose there are two division tag in a index.html.
Hmm.
Okay, we have two view and a two controller.
Okay.
Now I want to fetch first view data in a second
No,
controller.
let me tell you, don't worry about multiple views. Just now I told you, we are going to cover that scenario. How to use multiple
Okay,
views, we'll try to do that in the next level.
okay, fine.
Yeah. Then what about
Yeah, Vijay, this
others?
is Abhijit here.
Don't talk
Hello.
about multiple views. In tomorrow's class, we'll understand how to use multiple views. Okay? Right, then,
Vijay, this is Abhijit here.
yeah, Abhijit.
Hello. Yeah, I have one doubt that here if you want to call our CSS query, do it as in HTML file or view?
CSS concept you can write anywhere here. What you can do is, you can write like this. For example, if you want to attach a CSS to a form, then you can try like this here itself. Simple form, simple form dot, you can use add style class method. There won't be any problem.
Okay.
And you attach that style class here. Are you getting my point?
Yeah, yeah.
So there won't be any problem. The remaining methods and all those things will fall in line similar to our previous examples.
Okay.
Yeah. Then what about others?
Hi,
Yeah, Vijay, Ravi here.
Yeah, Ravi.
Uh, Vijay, like that, whatever the CSS file we are referring, we will call it in the index.html page, like link and href we are
Exactly.
providing.
Yes. That reference should be in index file itself. Link,
Okay.
style sheet, and type equal to text by CSS, href equal to that CSS file name. That will be in index file itself.
Okay, and Vijay, for some screen elements, you are providing ID as a property attribute, and some you are
That's what, there
directly
are two
write.
syntaxes. If there is only single property, you want to provide, directly provide it in double quotes.
Okay, okay, Vijay, okay.
If there are multiple, then provide the property colon value. If there are
Okay, okay,
multiple properties, use property colon value like this.
okay, Vijay.
By default, if you provide something in double quotes while creating screen element, then it is treated as the ID of the screen element.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Then Who else?
Yeah, Vijay, this side Rahul here.
Yeah, Rahul.
Yeah, actually, I have one doubt. Like for the screen element which you have created in the view part, so you are passing to that one array, and you are
Yes.
returning to that array to that index file content. So isn't it
Yes.
possible like we can directly return that screen element object to that content by simply like return that screen
Yes,
object?
yes, that is also possible. But when you are using multiple views, I think this approach is recommended, because if you want to define the layouts, then what happens is you define the layouts. For example, you can define a layout like this. I'm just making you understand. Okay, this is not the complete code. You can define a layout. Under that layout, you can add whatever you want. For example, drop down, checkbox, etc., and table, etc. And ultimately, that layout should be assigned to that screen element array should return layout by using, first you have to add that layout and then you have to push it. So in that way, you are if you are doing with your previous case, then it will fail. Are you getting my point? So what we can do is we can define a layout for multiple screen elements and we add that layout to screen element array, then we return that screen element array. This is the best way of writing the code.
Okay.
Yeah. Then what about others? Mahidhar?
Hi, Vijay.
Yeah. Venkat?
Yeah. So like before we did in index.html and now we are doing in view and controller. So what makes to do this? I mean, if we get the same functionality in index.html as well.
No, it's like there will be multiple views. In real time, we don't have single view. Today is a very basic part, so I explained with a single view. But in real time, there will be multiple views, so it's better to separate that views related functionality in different views and different controllers. You can't write everything in index file. That is not the best practice. That's the reason why we write the view 1 content in view 1, view 2 content in view 2, view 3 content in view 3, and we'll write their functionalities in respect to controllers. That is a best practice. Don't write everything in index file. That won't solve your real-time things.
Okay. Okay.
Are you getting my point? So when we go to real time, we will get multiple screens. So we can't write multiple screens content within the single index file. It becomes difficult. Better to separate the functionalities, better to separate the screen elements.
Okay. And so in the backend, how how is that executing? Like still index.html only gets executed, or
First index will be executed. After that, it will load content of view 1 because internally view.placeAt content, that is a default code available. So you can see here.
okay.
So first index file is executed in that view.placeAt content. That means after that view create content method will be generated and it will place all the screen elements in your HTML body.
Okay.
So you can see this line will initiate your view. This line will initiate the respective view and it will place the screen elements in a content. That means whatever you are returning, it returns to this content.
Okay.
Yeah, what about
so
others?
for debugging, one sec, Vijay. So for debugging, like as we did
For debugging, just put a debugger keyword and execute that application. Just use debugger keyword.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
That's a keyword. Wherever you want to debug, just use debugger keyword. The program execution will stop at that line in the browser.
Okay.
So you can use this.
Thanks.
Other students, please try this. For debugging, we can use a keyword that is debugger. That is a statement. You can try that. Okay, try that. Okay, don't depend everything on me. Try something on your own that will open up different ideas. Then what about other students? Or you can, in the last class I told you there is one more option like control. There's another technique. But if you want to debug, you can also write a debugger statement in your script and the program execution stops at that line in the browser. Right, then what about other students? Sunil, Swadhin, Srikanth.
Hi Vijay, Jyoti here.
Yeah, Jyoti.
We have used multiple screen elements in a view, and all the screen elements we are placing in a content. Is it possible to use multiple contents for same single view?
I think I am not sure about that.
Okay.
I'm not sure about that, how it works in that way. Generally, each view should have a separate content area.
Okay.
But
Only one content can be used.
One view with multiple content areas, I don't think it will work, but it may work. The only thing is the number of lines of code may increase.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. But at present, I can say I did not try that type of scenario earlier.
Okay.
Okay. Then what about others?
Hi sir, I'm Asha here.
Yeah, Arshavardhan.
Sir, can you reuse the same screen element in another content?
Can you?
Can we reuse the same same screen element in another content? Like in
Reuse
same.
means what? You want to reuse the code or you want to reuse that value?
Not value, reuse the like UI element. Then we need to capture different.
Then you have to use a fragment concept. In that case, I think SAP has provided some fragment concept. You can try with fragment concept if you want to reuse the screen elements. Yeah. Then Bhavna, I think you have to use some vertical layout. You can try this. In tomorrow's class, I'll try to explain that layout concept. We'll try with 1 or 2 layouts in tomorrow's class. Bhavna. Okay, then what about others? Saral Desai, I did not get your question. Saral Desai. What interface option? What do you mean by interface option here? Saral Desai. Can you hear me? What do you mean by interface option? I did not use anything like interface anywhere in our code. I'm not sure which interface you are referring to. Can you give some clarity on that? Okay, then what about other students? Sanket, Rani. No doubts. Okay, then what else? Satyakiran, I think he's an old student. Srikanth. Srikanth. Can you hear me? Then your voice is, I think I can't hear you, Srikanth. Then Mahendra Sahu, Gaurav, Dilip.
No doubt.
Then Ashish Tiwari. Ashish Sharma, I think you have joined late. Are you able to follow the concepts? Ashish Sharma. Okay. Anil. Anil. Okay, no doubt. Then Abhijit. Adilakshmi, are you able to follow today's class? I think there was some audio problem in your machine. Okay, students, no need to worry. If you still, after practicing, if you get some more doubts, you can mail me. I'll try to respond. While practicing, you may get some more doubts on this topic, then just mail me. I'll respond. Okay. And tomorrow we are going to
Saroj here.
discuss. Yes,
Yes,
Saroj.
you can. Yes, sir, Saroj.
Yeah, Saroj, you can speak now. Saroj? You are not able to get data from backend to frontend through the code.
Yes, sir.
Did you send that code to me?
Yes,
Hello?
sir, actually. Yes,
In
I have
you're talking about table or any other?
yes, table or any other thing. Though
Okay,
my co
within half an hour I'll verify that mail and I'll send it back to you.
okay, sir.
Okay, yeah.
Vijay sir, can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Uh, Hello? 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 Hello, Vijay sir? Hello? Hello? Hello?
I think it got disconnected.
Technical problem. వాళ్ళకే ప్రాబ్లం మనకేం లేదు. హలో
I tried to call him, but he's not answering the call.
Today we don't have the class till 8:30.
Can we call Abhijit?
I think, yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be the class till 8:30, I guess. I don't know.
I think we can disconnect.
Are you ready?
What about other students? Can you hear me? Okay. So in our case, we'll try to understand one of the layout that is a matrix layout, very commonly used. So first let me take one simple scenario, something like this. Say for example, I want to have first name label left side and input field or text field right side. And similarly, I want to take last name as a label left side, and I want to use a text field right side. And similarly, I want to take other fields like email ID label and its text field right side. And let me take, for example, country, label, and text field. I'm using right side. Mobile number, it's a label left side. I'm expecting its text field right side. And the next field is rating related label, and right side I'm expecting rating indicator. And similarly, I'm expecting slider with a label, and I'm expecting slider with a label and a slider right side. So what you can do is, I want to take one course related label. I'm expecting something like radio button group here, right side. And similarly, I want to take something like, for example, another field with course label, but I'm expecting, for example, a drop-down box. Drop-down box. Similarly, I want to take, for example, I want to take a checkbox related label, and I'm expecting checkbox right side here. And text area related label I want to use, and text area field I'm expecting right side. Right side options are the fields. They're the fields. And at the same time, at last, for example, I'm expecting a button. I'm expecting a button. So I'm expecting all these things in a matrix layout. It should look like this. And in a matrix layout, we can add any number of rows like this. We can add any number of rows like this. So I want to follow this particular layout. So first of all, you need to follow certain procedure. I'm expecting this in a matrix layout. And matrix layout is collection of rows. Matrix layout is nothing but it's a collection of rows. Technically, this is row 1, row 2, row 3. You can add any number of rows inside a matrix layout. You can add any number of rows inside a matrix layout. All these are considered as rows in technical terms. All these are rows. Etc., etc. So first of all, let us follow this procedure now. If you want to use a matrix layout, you need to follow certain procedure. According to step 1, you can create any number of labels and n number of screen elements. You can create n number of labels and n number of screen elements. That is according to step 1. Step 2 is you have to create matrix layout object. You have to create matrix layout object. And according to step 3, we have to create n rows. We can create n rows to matrix layout and pass label and screen element. You can create n rows to the matrix layout and pass label and screen element to each row. Create any number of rows to matrix layout and pass label and screen element to each row. Step 4, place matrix layout on content. Place matrix layout on content. So let us proceed according to this requirement now. let me take some labels and text fields. So here in this one, I want to take some fname label as new sap.ui.commons.label. And for label, the main property is text. For example, I'm providing first name. So these are the labels. This is a label, and for that label, I want to take one text field with some value property as blank. Value property, I want to make it blank, but I want to use some width here with, for example, 15 pixels or 15 EMs. Value, you can put it in double quotes, and width 15 pixels, 15 EMs I'm using. EM is a unit. And this is a text field. This is a text field. So like this, let me take some let me take last name, email, country, mobile also with labels and text fields. So why don't you copy this, paste it here, and I want to make this as last name label, last name text field, and the label is last name. Similarly, let me take one more field, that is email. And let me take email text field, and the label is email. And similarly, let me take, for example, I want to use country. Okay, let us not worry about this country, and let us directly go with a mobile label. Mobile label. So this is a field for mobile. So let me give some text field TF. And similarly, I want to take something like rating indicator. I want to take rating indicator, and rating indicator also I want to take a label. So I want to take one label for rating indicator. Let me copy this, and here this is rating related label, and let me provide some text. And you need to know how to create rating indicator. So let me copy that. For rating indicator, the class is rating indicator. And this is a rating indicator field. For rating indicator, you can define the max value. For example, I want to use maximum rating is 10. And similarly, let me use a slider with a label. I want to use a slider, and this is a label for a slider. And I want to create a slider, so let me copy this. This is a slider field, and I want to create object for range slider. Range slider, and for range slider there will be some properties, so let me utilize all those properties here. Width, for example, 300 pixels. Width is one property. Like that, you can provide several properties here. So let me use one horizontal slider. Then you can use minimum as 0. Max, for example, I want to take 200. And the default first selected value, let me make it 100, or let me make it 60. And default selected higher value, I'm making, for example, 160 here. And total units, I want to take 5. And step labels I want to display, so you can use true. And I want to make this horizontal slider, so you have to use vertical false. So you can use width, min, max, value 1, value 2, total units, step labels, vertical. So these are the general properties of a slider, that is a range slider. And I want to use like a radio button group, or first let me take a drop down box. For that, we need to take one label. You can take a label, for example, course. So this is for drop down box. And let me take some default code from documentation. I'm taking the code from documentation in order to utilize the label for drop down. In order to utilize the drop down box, let me go to the standard code. So I've already explained how to use drop down box, etc. You can also use this code. And here, okay, let us not worry about all these things. Let us make it as simple as possible. So in drop-down box, I want to use country value. So you can provide all those things. Hello students, can you hear me? Yeah, then let me just provide some values here. So this is the drop-down box related coding, and this is a drop-down box for country. And similarly, I want to take a label for example, this is for country. Now let me take another label that is for course. Course related label. So you can use this. And for course, I want to utilize a radio button group. for course, I want to utilize a radio button group, then let us try that. Let me take the code from the documentation. Let me take some piece of code from documentation here. So there's a code which is related to our radio button group. It's a radio button group. And for radio button group, I'm expecting some values, for example, already I've discussed how to use these things individually, but now we are using those same screen elements in order to understand the matrix layout. We have already discussed about these things individually, but today we are discussing the same screen elements. Some of the screen elements I'm trying to utilize in order to make you understand the matrix layout. So I've added some list of courses in that particular radio button group. And not only radio button group, I want to take one checkbox. I want to take a checkbox with some text property. So, and I'll be using a label here. So let me copy that label even for checkbox. And this checkbox is I'm providing the label text, say for example, something like that. That's a label I'm using, and for this I want to use a checkbox. Checkbox field. And for checkbox, as I told you, the class is checkbox and the property is checked. The property is checked, you can use that. And I want to default. By default, the checkbox should be selected, so you can use true value here. I'm using default checkbox with selected. So you can use checked as true. And similarly, I want to take one more screen element with a label for comments. So for comments, I want to use one label. And for comments, I'm using some label with text. Please enter comments. And for this, let me take one screen element as text area. Text area is the most appropriate one because it can allow multiple lines. Text area, you can use value and you can provide some other properties here. This is a comments field. You can use other properties, for example, rows. As for example, 10, I'm using columns, for example, 40. So you can use a text area in order to accept multiple lines. In order to accept multiple lines. So multiple lines are possible if you are using the rows and columns properties. And at last, let me take one button equal to new sap.ui.commons dot button, and just let me take one simple property text and submit. If you want to write any code, you can write it under submit press event. Under button press event, you can create action and that story continues. In this example, my intention is not to explain the button functionality. My intention is to explain the matrix layout for all these screen elements. So what you need to do is you can add all the screen elements like this. You can add all the screen elements according to requirement along with labels. So that is what we have done, something like this. We have taken all these things here. And now, according to our step 1, what we have done is we have created n number of labels and n number of screen elements according to requirement. You can create n number of labels and n number of screen elements according to requirement. So that is what we have done at present. Now what you need to do is you need to create a matrix layout object. You have to create a matrix layout object. So how it is possible? Very simple. You can use var layout object equal to new sap.ui.commons dot, you can use matrix layout. There's a class name. And for matrix layout, I'm using layout fixed. Layout fixed I'm using as false. We are defining a matrix layout object here. Let me take M layout. That means it's a matrix layout object because we are creating object for matrix layout class. So that is according to step 2. Matrix layout is a class and we are creating object for that matrix layout. So according to step 2, that is done. Now what we need to do is we need to create n rows to the matrix layout. We can create any number of rows to the matrix layout. While creating each row, you need to place the label and the screen element. While creating each row to matrix layout, we need to place the label and screen element. So that means technically for each row you can provide like this: label and screen element, label and screen element. So for each row you can create a row with label and screen element. So that's the reason why what we can do is we can use matrix layout object dot, you can use create row matrix layout object dot create row is a method. And for first row I'm expecting fname label, fname text field. First name label, first name text field, so you can provide something like this. That's it. Similarly, you can create any number of rows. Matrix layout object dot create row, and you can use L name label comma L name text field. Very simple. So second row will display last name label along with last name text field. And similarly, email label, email text field. You can use matrix layout object dot create row, then email label comma email text field. Matrix layout object dot create row, and you can use mobile related label and mobile related text field. And matrix layout object dot create row, and let me take rating label rating field. Rating label comma rating field. And similarly, let me take one more, that is slider label slider field. I'm taking slider label along with slider field. So what we can do is you can add one more row. Matrix layout dot create row is a method. For that you can pass slider label then slider field. And let me take some more rows. I want to take like next one as country drop down label and drop down field I want to place. So drop down label, then I want to use drop down box field. Let me check those things properly. Drop down box 1. And similarly, I want to take like course label and course related radio button group. Course label, then radio button group object. For course, I'm taking radio button group. For country, I'm using drop down. And similarly, I'm taking one more label here. And that is for checkbox field. That is for checkbox field, so you can pass that field here. And then let me take comments label and comments field. Comments label, comments field, and at last I want to take a button, so you can add that here. So like that, you can add any number of rows to the matrix layout. You can add any number of rows to matrix layout, and at last you have to place your matrix layout on content. You can use place at. You can place it on content. So let me test if there is any problem. We'll rectify those syntaxes. First, let me test it. So there is a problem. Let me check what is the problem. expected flower bracket close in line number 111. Text area, value. Okay, there should be a comma here. Comma is missing. That is rectified. Let me check again. Yeah, are there any problems? So now you can see we are able to get that. And let me take one meaningful, that is UX. SAP UX is one of the theme. So let me run with SAP UX theme. And this is how it looks like. So let me run this on external browser. And this is how it looks like. Okay, so if you closely observe, there are different labels with different screen elements, but everything looks in a proper order under this matrix layout. There are text fields, there is a rating, there is a slider, and there's a drop down. There is a radio button group, checkbox, comments field, but everything looks like in a proper format now. So this is one matrix layout. Technically speaking, there is nothing here. It's very simple. You create all your screen elements. You create all your screen elements and place it like this. Label, field, side by side by using create row method. You can place label and the field by using something like create row method when you are using a matrix layout. This is how it looks like. And everything will fall in same line. So technically we call it as a matrix layout, and in matrix layout these are the rows. Under each row we are adding label and the field. We are adding label and the field inside each row. So in terms of coding, this is what we have done. We have created a matrix layout. We are attaching label and its associated field to a row, and row is attached to a matrix layout. Now, say for example, I want to provide something like a CSS properties. No problem, this is possible. At present, if you closely observe, all the screen elements are attached to matrix layout. At present, all the screen elements are assigned to a matrix layout here. At present, all the screen elements are attached to matrix layout. So what we can do is we can attach our style class to this matrix layout. So let me take the same style class which we have taken earlier. Let me copy from previous examples. You can copy that and paste it inside your web content. And I want to take one background image. Let me copy that, paste it in web content folder. So CSS contains some properties here: background, font size, font style, color, background, border, etc. And what you need to do is, under index file, you need to attach something like your style CSS property file. You have to attach your .css file inside a program in which you are using. So you can use rel equal to style sheet, and then you can use type equal to something like text by CSS, and you can use your style equal to mystyle.css file. So that is how you have to load your CSS file into your program. We are loading our CSS file into a program by using this line. Already I've covered this point. So this is what we need to do. And after this, what we can do is we can attach for matrix layout, we can add our style class, and you can provide your style class name, that is my style. That's it. This line remains same. You can attach your style class to any screen element. It can be directly to a screen element, or it can be assigned to a layout also. So whatever the style you have designed in CSS, that will be applicable for matrix layout in this particular example. So let me try now. Let me refresh once. Let us try here as well. There is no change. There seems to be some problem. Let me check what exactly is this one. Let us take dot my style, an index file, mystyle.css. So what is the last one I gave in your notes? Last time we were using some syntax. In order to link our CSS file, we were using some syntax here. Link rel style sheet, type equal to text by CSS. There is no problem here, but the problem is with this one. Instead of using href, we were using a style. Here you need to change. Href equal to your, href is a property that is equal to the CSS file. Now I don't think there will be a problem. It should successfully load this after refreshing. Now you can see it is applied here. So whatever the CSS properties are applied, it is applied for entire layout. And the same thing, you can also see it on any browser after refreshing. It looks like this. So something like that. And similarly, so after this, you can do whatever you want now. Under submit action, what we can do is, under submit action, we can capture all those values and we can perform our database operations. We can capture those values and we can perform database operations. So CRUD operations we are going to discuss in the coming classes. CRUD operations in UI5 and Fiori we are going to discuss in the coming classes. But this is how you can define the layout. Okay, and say for example, think like this. Say for example, in my application, I am expecting, in this case, for example, I'm expecting this last name also somewhere here. For example, I'm expecting last name somewhere here in the same row. And I'm expecting, for example, mobile number here. I'm expecting mobile number in second row something like this. Then you need not worry. It's very simple. In a single row, you need not add single label with single field. You can also add multiple labels with multiple fields. Under matrix layout, in a single row, if required, we can add multiple labels with multiple fields. So just let me make you understand here. You can see this. Let me comment this. And I want to add last name label, last name text field, last name label, last name text field. I'm adding in the first row itself. I'm adding in the first row itself. And similarly, for example, mobile number, label, mobile number, text field, I want to add it in second row. So you can add it here. Now this first row contains 4 options, second row also contains 4 options here. So let us try now how it looks like. Let me test here. Now you can see the difference. You can see the difference here. It looks like this. And let me refresh here. And this is what I'm expecting. So this is a field 1, these are field 2, field 3, field 4. So this is also possible. In single row, we can add any number of screen elements inside a matrix layout. So let me write some of the important points at present. So this is an important code. Implement below code. First create labels and its screen elements according to requirement. Then implement code in below format. So that's the code you have to use. So let me write some of the important points here. Matrix layout is collection of rows. Each row can contain any number of screen elements. Each row can contain any number of screen elements. That is one thing you need to notice. And similarly, we can attach style class. We can attach a style class to layout. That means matrix layout if required. That is we can use like this: matrix layout dot add style class, and you can assign that style class somewhere here. So this is also possible. If required, we can add, for example, if required, we can add many screen elements in single row. So how to do that? You have to follow this technique. For example, you can try like this. Similarly, you can try other options. So this is also one of the points that you need to notice. And under button action, you can write whatever code you want, that you can do it. So the point here is all the screen elements are not directly placed on content. So please remember that. In this scenario, all the screen elements are not directly placed on content. They are not placed directly on content. So that is here in this example, all screen elements are added to matrix layout, and matrix layout is placed on content. That is how the above code is developed. So we are not adding the screen elements directly to the content. We are adding screen elements to the matrix layout. We are adding the screen elements to matrix layout, and matrix layout is placed on content of HTML body. Okay, so please remember that. And what you do is just take a break. Just take a break for 5 minutes. Don't log off. Do not log off. Just stay back. Okay, we'll continue for 1 more hour. Up to 7:30, I'll take the class. So don't log off. Okay. After 5 minutes, we'll continue the next 1 hour. Okay. And if you have any doubts, I'll clarify after that 7:30. No need to worry. Hello students, can you see my screen? Hello students, can you hear me? What about others? Can you hear me? Okay, let us proceed further. So what I want to do is I want to create two views, and I want to navigate between two views. In the next example, I want to create two views and I want to navigate between two views. That means two views are nothing but two screens here. And I want to navigate between two views. So this is a concept we'll try to target. So first of all, whatever the code we have written just now, let me try to place that code in view 1. Let me place that code inside view 1. So let me check whether it is working or not. You can cut that code. I'm going to view 1. I'm going to view 1 and I'm writing the same code in create content method. Whatever code we have written just now, the entire code I'm copying here under create content method of first view. So, and here instead of using place at method, what we need to do is we can take one something like, or else you can take like this, return, you can directly return M layout. So if you're writing the code, inside the view, then you have to implement that functionality under create content method. I've shifted my total code to the first view. It's a first view, and first view contains a create content method. So the entire functionality, entire screen elements code is written here, and at last we are returning the matrix layout object. So let us try once whether it is working or not with first view. So let me refresh here once. So now you can see there is no change. At present, there is no change here. We are able to load the content of first view inside our index file. We are getting the same content as it is, even when you write the code under first view related create content method, because after generating all the screen elements, in create content method, finally we are returning that matrix layout. Now let us go with one scenario here. Think like this. I want to take one panel in index file. In index, I'll take one panel. Panel acts like a container. Here panel acts like a container. And in this panel, I'm expecting view 1 content. In panel, I'm expecting view 1 content inside the panel. And say, for example, just for our understanding, for example, if I click on submit button, just for example, if I click on submit button, I want to jump from first screen to second screen. Inside the same panel, I want to jump from first screen to second screen. That means here I want to load view 2 content. I want to load view 2 content, something like this. So when you click on submit button or next button, I want to move from first view content to second view content. And then what you need to do is, say for example, here in view 2, if I click on a button, back button, if I click on back button here, then I want to jump from when I click on back button, I want to jump from second view to first view. Something like this. And as a developer, you can display any content here, you can display any content here. Here the content can be content specific to view 1. Here the content can be content specific to view 2. So that is what we can do here. But if you closely observe this entire navigation, the entire navigation part is going to happen within the panel. This is one of the technique. This is one of the technique. So initially index file will load. Initially index file will load a panel as a container. Inside that panel, we can load view 1. And if you click on a button, it can load view 2. And if you click on back button, it will come back to view 1. So I want to implement this scenario. Now, what you need to do here is, okay, let me go according to this procedure. Right click web content folder and create a view that is nothing but view 2, or you can provide like this. You can provide, for example, something like this, second view. So when you create second view, when we create a view, automatically its controller will be created, will be generated. So don't forget this point. That means I can say each view contains a separate view controller. Don't forget this. Each view contains a separate view controller. You need to just create a view, but it automatically creates its controller. So let me proceed here. I'm going to web content folder and I can create one view here. For example, new other section. Let me select like view. You can see when you right click, you can select a view and you can make that, for example, think like this. This is like second view. So under this 8 AM view technique, that's a folder. In that folder, we are creating a second view here. So now you can see, if you closely observe, a second view controller, both are created here. Second view and second view controller, both are created. So just observe now. In this case, after creating, this is a first view contains its own controller. First view contains its own controller. And there is a second view also contains its own controller here. Second view contains its own controller. If you create third view, it also contains a separate controller. That's the reason why I can say each view in our UI5 or Fiori application generally contains a separate controller. Please notice that. So now, according to this particular diagram, I want to register view 1, I want to register view 2. Both should be registered. We need to register view 1 as well as we need to register view 2 under index file. So that's the reason why you can copy this code here. You can just copy this line. This is auto-generated code when you create the project first time. When you create the project first time, you'll get this line. So why don't you copy this line and why don't you make this, for example, as view 2 here. And you can provide some ID. You can provide some ID second view. You can provide some ID here. ID for first view, ID for second view, and it is pointed by view 1 and view 2 variables. And the actual view is available in this folder with the name second. So that's it. So both the views are registered in index file. Okay, so remember that. Now in index file, register both the views, view 1 comma view 2. That is what you need to do. And what else I want to do is, for example, I want to take one, I want to create a panel. According to this diagram, according to the diagram, panel should be placed via index file. Panel is the first thing that will be loaded before loading view 1 or view 2. And I'm expecting a panel as a first option through index file. So why don't you create a panel here? You can use var. You can use like var panel object equal to new sap.ui.commons.panel. You can use like, let us concentrate on this one. We are creating a panel object here, and panel object, what you do is you can provide some properties with ID for the panel as ID panel. You can give some ID for that panel. You can provide some ID, and then I want to use some height For example, I want to use height, for example, 500 pixels. 500 pixels is the height I'm using, and I don't want to show collapse icon. So you can use one property like show collapse icon. For example, I'm using false. That's a very simple property. You'll understand after executing the program. Show collapse icon. By default, I'm making false. And the point here is whenever our panel is loaded, by default, I want to make view 1 should be first displayed. When panel is loaded, I want to make view 1 content as default. View 1 content should be default when panel is loaded. So that's the reason why in that situation, you can use content. You can use content, and that is something like view 1. So that means inside a panel, view 1 is a default that will be loaded. View 1 will be the default that will be loaded. And then what you can do is, it's very simple. You can use panel object dot place at content. You can use panel object, then place at content. So because panel is the first option that it acts as a container, so that container I'm loading via index file, because after loading a panel, we can load anything, view 1 or view 2 or view 3, that depends on our choice. Now, in view 2, I'm expecting a button. In view 2, I'm expecting a button. So what we can do is, let me go to a view 2 related create content method. In view 2 create content method, let me provide some, let me give some text view. Text view, for example, equal to new sap.ui.commons text view. And for this, let me provide some properties here. That is text. For example, welcome to view 2. Just for our understanding, I'm providing some welcome text in view 2. For our understanding, I'm providing some welcome text in view 2. And it should have something like this one. And here I want to use the text with bold, or I want to have a text with large size, so you can use design. sap.ui.commons.text view design dot text view design dot, you can see all HTML tags, you can get it here, H1, H2, H3, H5, H6, italic, small, underline, and you can see bold. You can use all these HTML tags. So I'm directly using H1 tag, so the text size will be large. Let me just use that. And similarly, I want to take one button. For example, B2, new sap.ui.commons dot, you can use button, and for that button, we can use some properties here like text. And that is, for example, back to view 1. I'm just providing some text as back to view 1. And we can declare one array here, screen element array. I can declare like this. And what we can do is we can add like this screen element array dot, you can use push method, which I explained yesterday. You can push your text view object, screen element array dot push. You can use like button2, and ultimately you can return screen element array. Something like that. From first view create content method, we are directly returning the layout, because layout contains all our screen elements. So that's the reason why there is no necessity of a additional array. From first view, our entire content is available in a layout, so directly we are returning an array. We are directly returning a layout. From first view, we are directly returning a layout because the layout contains all the screen elements of my first view. So that's the reason why I did not take an explicit array here. Okay, so please remember that. But in second view, what I'm trying to do, I'm adding text view button both in a single array, and we are returning that array. If you want, you can also return a layout by creating a matrix layout with text view and button. You can also do like that. So now this is fine. But what is important is you need to implement the forward functionality and backward functionality between these two views. We need to implement forward functionality and backward functionality between these two views. So first let me start with first view. In first view, you can see we have created a button. In first view, you can see there is a button, something like, for example, I'm giving next here. Next is a button, and here for this button, you can use some event, press event. You can use press event, and you can use oController dot next to view 2. You can create one function like this. So for next button, I'm using press event, and we are referring to the controller dot some function name. We are referring to its controller dot its function name. So button is in a view, but its function is executed in a controller. That's the reason why we have to use oController dot function name. Button is in a view, but the functionality should be implemented in controller. That's the reason why you can use oController dot that function name. So now I'm going to first view controller. And here at the bottom, what you can do is you can implement that functionality. So that is nothing but next to view 2, that is a functionality. So you can create a function like this. And within the flower brackets, you can write the code. Within flower brackets, you can write the code. And similarly, okay, we'll write the code later. But similarly, in second view also, we are creating a button here. From second view also, we are creating a button. For this button also, let me provide some event, that is press event colon oController dot, I want to use back to view 1. I want to create one function as back to view 1 in its controller. So why we are using oController dot function name? Because this function I want to implement in a controller. Back button is generated through view, but the functionality of that button will be available in controller. That's the reason why you have to use oController dot that function name. oController dot that function name. So now why don't you go to second view controller. So this is your second view controller. Just scroll down. You can provide that back to view 1. There's a functionality should be implemented. So you can provide something like this. That's it. So in simple words, in both the button, in case of both buttons, button is available in a view 1, its functionality will be written in its view 1 controller. Second button is in view 2 and its functionality is written in second view controller. And they are interlinked. They are interlinked just by using O controller parameter here. They are interlinked just by using O controller parameter. So let me write a simple note. Yesterday I gave that clarity, but let me just revise that point here. Button is generated via view. Button is generated via view, and its functionality is written in view controller. So in first view, I can say next button is created in view 1, but its functionality should be written in view 1 controller. Similarly, back button is generated. Via view 2, and its functionality we are going to write in its view 2 controller. So that is the technique we are following here. And let me give one more note. View can access view events, view related, or let me write like this, view related screen elements, can access functions of view controller using O controller parameter. That is the point which we have understood yesterday. View related screen elements can access the functions of view controller using O controller standard parameter. The same thing we have done here as well. The same thing we are trying to do here as well. But what should be the functionality in next button? What should be the functionality for back button? That we need to do now. When user click on next button, some code should be executed to load view 2. And when user click on back button, some code should be executed to load view 1. So let me write the description first before writing the code. When user click on next button, panel should remove view 1 content. When user click on next button, panel should remove view 1 content and panel should load view 2 content. That is the scenario we are implementing here. And similarly, when user click on back button, so in our case, we are going to have a panel. The panel should remove view 2 content. Panel will remove view 2 content, and then panel should load view 1 content. So this is the technique we are implementing here. There may be several other techniques, but this is the general technique which I come across in most of the applications. So you can try this also. Let me repeat. When user click on next button, panel will remove view 1 and panel will load view 2. And when user click on back button, panel will remove view 2 and panel will load view 1. So that is going to happen. So this functionality you can implement in next button action, and this functionality can be implemented in back button action. So in order to do this, first let me go to first controller next to view 2. So here you need to get the reference of your panel first. You need to get the reference of a panel, so you can use get core dot by ID, and you can pass that panel ID here. So this line will help you to get the reference of the panel screen element, because we are passing the ID of the panel. Because we are passing the ID of the panel, and you can see we are getting a panel object here. We'll get panel. We are not creating a panel. Please don't misunderstand here. We are not creating a panel. We are getting the reference of the already existing panel by passing the ID of the panel. We are not creating a new panel. We are trying to get the reference of existing panel by passing the ID of that existing panel. And what you need to do is, now you need to get the reference of your view 2. You need to get the reference of view 2, and that also can be done by using sap.ui.getCore. getCore.byId. And what is the ID of your second view that you need to pass it here? So here you can see the ID of the second view is ID second 2. So I'm referring here. So we are not creating, don't misunderstand here, we are not creating view 2 here. We are getting the reference of the already registered view. We are getting the reference of already registered view by passing the ID of that view. Now it's very simple. Panel dot, you can remove all content. You can use remove all content. There is one method here, remove all content, and after that panel dot, you can add content. And why don't you add view 2 here? That's it. So from panel we are removing that existing view 1 content and we are adding view 2 content. From panel we are removing view 1 content here and we are adding view 2 content when user click on next button. Similarly, why don't you go to second view controller? In second view controller, you need to implement back functionality. You can do it in different ways, but this is one of the technique I'm using, sap.ui.getCore getCore.byId. First, let me get the reference of that panel. I want to get the reference of that panel, and you will get that panel reference, existing panel reference. And I want to get the reference of view 1. I need to get the reference of existing view 1, which is already registered, and that can be done by using sap.ui.getCore.byId and pass that ID first view 1. You can see that here. ID of first view is ID first 1. That we are referring here. Now what we can do is we can use panel.remove all content, and panel dot we can add content. The new content is view 1 when you're clicking back button. The new content is view 1 when user click on back button. So let me test it at this level. So let me test it now. If it is working, then it's okay. Otherwise, I'll make some changes in the code. So now you can see, so it is working fine. Let me test it in external browser. Now you can see when I click on next button, it is going to second view. It is going to second view. And when I click on back button, it can come back to first view. So that is how it works. Similarly, you can perform any type of navigation. So that is how you can navigate. This is one kind of technique to navigate between two different views here. So the entire navigation is taking place inside a panel. Inside panel, the entire navigation is taking place. So say for example, think like this. If I use panel show collapse icon true, let us see what exactly happens. I'm using show collapse icon true, and let us test it in external browser. So when you're using collapse icon true, then the content will be minimized and maximized here. You will get some icon that is a expand and collapse icon. The content can be minimized and maximized. You can see content can be minimized and maximized inside the panel. So whenever you are making panel as a container, generally it is not recommended. Whenever you are using panel as a container, don't make it true, make it false, so that you can load view 1, view 2 content without any expand option. So that is how you can try. And if you have any doubts, you can ask me. Let us be specific. Your doubts must be specific to previous examples or at least this example. Don't ask me about the concepts which I'm going to explain in the coming classes. Okay? Yeah.
Hi Vijay, this is Anil.
Yeah, Anil.
I have seen your WebDentro classes also similar to view container. Do we have anything similar in this also?
Here panel is acting like a view container.
Okay.
The panel itself will act as a view container. There is no separate screen element in UI5 here.
Okay.
Okay. That's the reason why we are taking panel to look like a container, like view container in WebDentro.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about other students?
Hi Vijay, this is Satya Sunil. I have a question like I have a view one content is need to be reused in another views like
that concept we are going to discuss. We are not talking
no
about
problem.
the content. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Thank you.
As of now, we are just discussing like how to navigate between the views, but we can transfer the content that we are going to understand in the next level.
Okay. Thank you, Vijay.
Hi, sir. Hello.
Yeah, Harshavardhan.
Yes, sir. Sir, we have in controller, we have seen some classes like on exit and something like predefined methods are there.
Yeah.
So can we, instead of creating some separate function, can we directly that assign on exit to in view?
On exit, I think that is not recommended because on exit can't be assigned to your custom buttons. You can see here there is on exit. There is a on exit here, but I think that should not be used directly to the button. events, or that should not be used to any screen element related events. That is not recommended. On exit is executed automatically when you jump from one screen to another screen, or when you close your screen. On exit functionality is different. The next functionality, back functionality, they are totally different. Are you getting
Can
my
we
point?
use in real time? Yes, sir, I got it.
You can use it. You can use on exit in. You can use on exit. That is to clear the memory. That is to clear the values. That is to clear the memory. We use on exit, but we don't use on exit for navigation purpose. So don't misunderstand this. The navigation and on exit. On exit is automatically triggered by the framework. Whatever code you write in on exit, that should be able to finalize the activities, and it should be able to free the resources by clearing the memory. Okay, that is something like WD do exit in WebDin Pro. On exit is like WD do exit in WebDin Pro. And you can see there is a method like on init, that is for initialization. And that is like WD do init in WebDin Pro. WD do init, WD do exit. So here also we have on init, on exit here.
Sorry, as well, like as in WebDrive Pro, can we have a suspend and resume like
No. We don't have those type of functionalities as of now, I think.
Yes.
Don't compare one framework with another framework. Every framework has its own capabilities. So I don't think there is a resume plug or suspend plug here. Yeah. Then what about others?
Yeah, hi Vijay, Neeraj this side.
Hi, Vijay. Yeah, Neeraj.
You have explained that if you are putting the content in a matrix layout or any sort of layout, you use array, right?
Hello?
So apart from that, any other way in which we should not use array apart from matrix layout?
No. It can be, array is not mandatory if you are using. If there is a container, layout is also like a container. Are you getting my point? So whenever you are grouping all the things in single layout, then you need not use an array. If you are using a vertical layout, then in that case also you need not use separate array, because vertical layout itself is it's like a layout which can send all the screen elements at once.
Okay.
Are you getting my point? Whenever you want to send individual screen elements which are nowhere related to layouts, in that case you can use array. But if you are adding and attaching everything to a layout, single layout, then array is not required. Directly send the layout by attaching all the screen elements to that layout.
Yeah. Got it, Vijay.
Yeah. Then what about others?
Here.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Vijay.
Yeah.
Hi, Vijay. Anil here.
Yeah, Anil. Hello, Anil.
Hello. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Instead of using panel as a container for navigation, is there any other screen element can we use for navigation?
You can use shell, S-H-E-L-L. You can use shell. It also follows the same technique, S-H-E-L-L, shell.
Okay. Only two screen elements, is it?
As of now, I think we have shell and panel, and there may be some more other options. I did not try, but shell is also possible with instead of panel. But the core functionality looks like the same.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah. Then what about others?
Thank you.
Jyoti, Deepti, Dikshita, Rani, are you able to follow the concepts?
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Hello, sir. This is Partha, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
Sir, how can I do the dependent node in drop-down box? Suppose, let's say we have two drop-down box, and we are going to manipulate the second drop-down box depending on the first drop-down box.
Then it's very simple. Let me tell you that in that case, what you do is for first drop down, you assign something like select event. You assign select event with one function and something like XYZ function here. And in XYZ function, you try to generate second drop down with values, with corresponding values. So that is how you need to follow. For first drop down, use select event and assign one function. In that function, capture the value, selected value from first drop down. So based on that, generate second drop down with corresponding values. That is the technique you have to follow. Are you getting my point? Pardasarthi, are you able to follow this one?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you get some idea now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Then what
Sir,
about others?
suppose.
Okay, continue.
So let's say we are using some data element domain.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's having some value in SAP DDIC.
Okay.
Suppose I want to use that particular fixed values in our
Then there is
screen.
a separate screen element. For that, you can use like search field. Then you can try with search field, attaching your data element or domain, and that is available in documentation. Please check the demo toolkit once.
Okay, sir.
Search field is also one of the screen elements. Search field, and you can also try with something like value help field. There is one screen element like value help field. You can try with those things. Are you getting my point?
Okay, okay.
Yeah, search field, value help field. Then what about others?
Hi Vijay, this is Venkat here.
Yeah, Venkat.
Yeah,
Hello,
I
Vijay,
know
are you
like
here?
you've been explaining with some examples, but if you can provide us a like a complete end-to-end scenario, like where we have real-time example, so that we know how we get the requirement. And I know you've been explaining the examples, but I mean to say like all combined in one requirement.
All
If you
combined
have,
in
then you
one
can share it.
requirement. What I'll do is I'll
All
share
combined
those.
means like
Yeah, all those type of things. I'll share those documents with you. You can just go through how the screens looks like and how navigation takes place and how the layouts are designed. So I'll send those real-time functional and technical documents with some sample screens which are developed. I'll be sending as part of the material. Don't worry. Till now, I did not send any material to this one. So when I send the material to you, along with that, I'll send the real-time screens with technical and functional documents. Okay.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Yeah. Then what about others?
Hello, Vijay, Ravi here.
Yeah, Ravi.
Hello, Vijay, are you
Vijay,
there?
just
Ravi.
yeah, Vijay. Is there any options like for doing the animation kind things and all? What are the options we have to use here?
Animations means what? What do you mean
Like
by
the form
animation?
moving like on the left. UI animations like.
Animations means in that case, what you have to do is you can use your tags. If HTML content is providing, you can try that in HTML tags. Whatever animation you want to provide, you can provide in the form of HTML tags. And what you can do is you have to do it at this level. You can see, for example, everything ultimately we are adding it to what? Content here. Everything we are adding it to a content. So then you can try some options here. Content. Let me check some. There may be some properties here. You have to try those things if you want. Okay. At content level, you can have some other properties. In that, your animation may also work here. You can see on change, on click. There are several other options here.
Okay. Yeah, Vijay, we are seeing like the images in the will change continuously. So like that options, whatever the seen in the web pages, like that any options like that kind.
You want to change that image for every 2 minutes or 1 second like that?
Ah,
Then
yeah, Vijay, like that.
then in that case, that's what. Then in that case, you can use some events here at
Okay.
HTML tag level. You can see on play. You can see on play.
Okay, okay, Vijay, okay.
On play. You can see some more. You can try those things because these type of HTML content you can easily experiment by Google search because everything
Yeah.
here you can see here mouse up, mouse down, on pause, on play. You can see some options here on play. Especially
Okay, okay.
on play, I think it will be used for animation as well.
Okay, Vijay.
Okay, so you can try those things. I was using style till today, which is
Okay.
important in general, but
Yeah.
you can also see other events here, other options.
Okay, Vijay, okay.
But those options, whatever animation part, whatever those things you want, you have to do it at content level within this body because ultimately every screen element will be placed on some content area, either 1, 2, 3, or 4, whatever.
Okay, Vijay, okay.
Yeah. Then
Thanks.
what about
Muted.
Swadhin, Sunil, are you able to follow the
Sir,
issue?
Hello, Vijay, Ajit here.
upload and download functionality.
Hello.
Hello? Yeah, hello? Hello, Ajit. Can you
Yeah,
hear me?
Vijay, are you able to hear me?
Yes, yes.
Hello.
I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you. Are you able to hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
So in the view page, yeah, in the view page, you have mentioned like that my selection array dot push. That selection array dot push is a keyword we are using, or that
Push is a
SC array
standard
is
method.
where we have defined those
No,
things.
no, no. Push is a standard method of an
And
array.
SC array, you have selection screen.
You can see here,
Mm-hmm.
let me tell you. I think you missed some yesterday's class, I think. Let me
Muted.
tell you here. So whenever you're declaring an array, for example, my array, something like this. So my array, when you're declaring an array contains some standard methods like pop. Ajit, there is some disturbance in your home. So, but here you can see my array dot, you can use pop, that's a standard method. Similarly, you can use my array dot push. You can use those methods and you can use my array dot something like, there are some methods here. If you use control space, you'll get some method. These are the standard methods. It need not be here. Don't think that push and pop is for
Okay.
screen element array. Push and pop, they are general methods of the actual array. It's not specific to screen element array. Don't think like that.
So you have defined any screen element array kind of thing in the views because you are using screen element array. Can you just share?
Screen element array is just our name. You can give XYZ here. You can give XYZ. That doesn't matter. And you can use
Okay,
like
okay.
XYZ
No, no,
everywhere. And you can return XYZ here.
no, I didn't get where it is defined, so that's why I asked.
Okay, okay. Now is it
Okay,
clear?
fine.
Just for our understanding,
Yeah, it's
for
clear.
our understanding, what I'm trying to do is, for our understanding, I'm just making like screen element, SCARRAY, but you can use any name. Okay, just remember that.
Actually, I missed yesterday class some
Okay,
points, so
okay.
that's why I was
Okay, no
unable to
problem.
recall that. Yeah.
Now I think you are able to
And those
recall.
functions which are given in the first yes, there are some methods on exit and on after entering and all. Are we going to use those methods also
On
for
init,
our
on
purpose?
init, on init is for just initialization. You can initialize the values. I'll send the code how we do that from those standard methods. But create content is a main method here. and creating custom functions is very important here. And on init coding, on exit coding, that we can do it. I'll send some piece of code so that you can understand how to clear the values and how to initialize the values. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Then what about others? Yeah, Sheshu. Select options, I think you have to use search fields here. You have to use search fields. There is no select option screen element directly available. Okay, there is no direct screen element. You have to use two fields, one for lower value, another for higher value, and you can manage the low and higher value with search field options. I was pointing to something like Venkat. I was explaining the same thing to Venkat. Search field, value fields you have to use. In SAP UI5 documentation, there are fields like search fields, value help fields, you have to use that. Yeah. Then what about others?
Muted. Muted.
Saroj, Saral Desai.
Yeah, Vijay, Ravi hearing.
Let me give chance to
Hello.
others. Ravi, let me give
Okay,
chance to
okay.
others. Raja, Rahul, Naveen. Can you hear me? Raja, Rahul. And Venkat, sap.ui.model is a package. It's like a package related. It's a library package. Venkat. Okay, then Naveen, Mukund, Naveen. Okay, no doubts then. Okay, Ravi, you can ask your doubt now.
Hi Vijay.
And
Hello.
yeah, yes. I can
Hi
hear
Vijay.
you.
This
You
is
can ask.
yes. Actually, is there any concept like a cross-component programming here, like integrating one project into another project like that?
No. I don't think we are reaching that level at present.
Okay.
Whatever you
Okay.
want to develop, you develop in single project. I don't think we have that type of technique at present.
Okay. Okay. And without panel also we can do. Can we do these kind of things between navigation between one view to another view like that?
Instead of panel, you can use shell. That is one of the option.
Yeah, without shell and without panel also, can we do like that?
I think
No.
without panel, without shell, I think it is not possible. You should use either one of that screen element.
Oh, okay.
You should use either panel as a container or you should use shell as a container.
Okay.
So in my example, I did not use shell concept because shell concept is available everywhere in Google, but that's the reason why I've taken a panel concept here. Shell concept you can get everywhere in Google, but you don't get a panel concept directly. That's the reason why I took this example with panel. Okay? Yeah. Then what about others?
Yeah, Vijay, Ravi here.
Yeah, Ravi.
Vijay, if we want to use the screen elements of the second view and the first view, that is by ID only we will use, or
By
we should
ID
create
only, ID only.
Okay. Should we create an object of view and dot that ID, or directly ID we can use?
First, you need to get the reference of view. After that, you can get the reference of the screen element.
Okay.
Yeah. Then what about
thanks.
others? Okay, you can see what do you mean by shell. Shell is nothing but this one. You can see if you closely observe our documentation is having a shell here. You can see this. This is a shell. You can see version info is shell item, credits is shell item, icons is shell item, and demo apps is shell item, and explode is a shell item, API reference is a shell item, controls is a shell item, developer guide is a shell item. So what I mean to say is whenever I select a item here, the corresponding page is displayed. The corresponding page is displayed. You can see that. So view 1 here, view 2 here, view 3 here, view 4 here, view 5 here. So that technically we call it as a shell here. You can see this is the code that is generated automatically on that documentation, but you can see somewhere here, I think you will find some shell concept. And you can see they are internally using like sap.ui.ux3, sap.ui.ux3. So that contains a shell. So you can see here under controls, ux3 controls, under ux3 controls there is a shell. And you can see home, examples, API documentation. These are the items of a shell. So whenever I select home, it is loading some view 1. Examples, it is loading view 2. And API documentation, it is loading view 3. Hello students, are you getting my point now? So inside a shell, you can have some 3 items and you can have view 1, view 2, view 3 in each item. Hello students, what about other students? Are you able to follow that? What do you mean by shell? This is nothing but a shell. In each shell item, it is displaying some view 1 content, view 2 content, view 3 content. Are you getting my point? Yeah. Then what about other students? Vasant, Tina, you have any doubts? Swadhin. Then let me go back to Deepthi. Deepthi. Abhijit, you have any doubts? Okay, then no doubts. Then Bhavana, you have any doubts? Mohan, Mahidhar. Mohan, Mahidhar, you have any doubts? No doubts.
Sir.
Okay, then.
Sir.
Then Dheeraj
Sir.
Singh. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Sir, upload, download functionality.
I'll try to explain. The course is not over. Don't worry. Okay, the course is still going on, right? So in the coming classes, we'll try to do with CRUD operations, file download, and Fiori development, customization, Fiori configurations, deployment procedure, theme designer. There are several things. Don't worry. We are going to cover those things in the coming classes as well. Right, then what about other students? Rahul, you have any doubts? Rahul.
Sir, when we have next class?
Next class will be on October 10th. Let me tell you the
yeah, so that you can mark our calendar.
So here we'll try to do like this. October 10th. Similarly, I'll start at 5:30 p.m. and I'll explain Fiori topics. Fiori part 1, and October something like 11th also I'll be taking Fiori topics, everything related to Fiori. That is like you can consider as part 2. And after completing these things, we'll try to go with CRUD operations. Why? Because CRUD operations are common in SAP UI5 as well as Fiori. CRUD operations, whatever we are going to do it, that will be general. The same code, you can use it in UI5 as well as Fiori. So that's the reason why first let me start the part 1, part 2 of Fiori. Then we'll go with CRUD operations and fetching data based on some input. And after that, we'll discuss some file download, etc., etc. And then we'll try to discuss like deployment procedure, deployment procedure, and then we'll discuss about theme designer, and then we'll try to discuss some miscellaneous topics. There may be some simple topics, and we are going to discuss like how we can develop uh, the applications, SAP UI5 applications in a new tool that is SAP HANA Studio. SAP HANA Studio is one of the tool. In that tool also, we can develop our UI5 applications. Whatever we have done till today, everything as it is without any change in syntax, you can also develop in HANA Studio tool. I'll open that HANA Studio tool and I'll show you whatever the options we found in Eclipse, the same thing as it is without any change, we are going to do it under HANA Studio. I'll just open that tool so that you will be familiar. And when I go for Fiori part 1, part 2, in that we are going to discuss SAP Web ID tool. Here and here, we are going to discuss SAP Web ID tool. Okay, and let me tell you, whenever I discuss these topics, internally some new things will come. Okay, I'm just writing the main topics side headings here, but there will be some subtopics under every main topic that also will come. For example, you may be asking, what is sap.yum? So sap.yum is a library that will cover, I will be covering when I go for Fiori part. So that's the reason why I'm not writing the subtopics here. I'm writing the main topics. Are you getting my point? But when we go for main topic, you will understand all the subtopics. So Mohan Krishna, are you getting my point? Yeah, so this is how we'll proceed. Okay, first we'll try to target the Fiori part 1, part 2 on October 10th and 11th. That October 10th, 11th, I'll take minimum 3 hours on Saturday and minimum 3 hours on Sunday. Okay, and after that we'll plan the remaining topics. Okay, I'm not going to skip anything. Whatever is prescribed in the syllabus, I'm going to cover in detail. Okay, yeah. Hello students, are you getting my point?
But Vijay, if suppose some hello.
Yeah, hello.
Hello Vijay.
Hello, I can hear you, Ajit.
Hello. Yeah, Vijay, if suppose somebody will not be able to, yes, suppose somebody will not be able to attend the class on Saturday, Sunday, then how he will get the things?
Then I think you can attend those topics in another batch. There will be some other batch coming up with Theory part 1, part 2. Those things you can attend in another batch. There won't be any problem. By the
But
time,
others will not be after that whatever topic you are going to cover.
no, but the same topics I'll be covering more or less with slight changes. The same topics will be covered in another batch also. You can attend all those topics in another batch if you have any emergency on 10th and 11th. Okay? Yeah. So I'll stop for today and just keep practicing. These are all, the only thing is you need to go according to the diagrams. Follow the requirement, go according to the diagrams, then think about the coding part. And let me tell you, don't try something like examples like random with a random approach. You will fail in that case. If you try examples with a random approach, you will fail. You try to follow according to our notes, class 1, class 2, class 3, then you will be able to increase your confidence level. What some people will do is they try to practice in a random manner and they feel a little bit trouble, and they will be in trouble if you do like that. Practice in sequence, because example to example there will be some slight connection that you can overcome without any hurdle, without any problem. Okay, I found some people practicing some XYZ example without knowing the basics. Don't do like that. Go according to the notes first. Okay, yeah.